Unlike Alex, I don't do fiction, which is actually much harder work than journalism. I do journalism, which is meant to be about facts. As it was said, I've worked and written about lots of things over the last 30, 40 years, but a lot of it's been about nuclear, in nuclear power, nuclear weapons, and nuclear transportation and things. Now what I do is write for the Ferret, which I know some of you are subscribers to, for which many thanks. For those who don't know, the Ferret is it was launched in 2015. It's a journalist and reader-owned cooperative that's not for profit. And it relies on its subscribers to produce journalism that people want, fact-based investigative journalism, mostly about Scotland. We've done lots of stuff about nuclear, including trying to expose some of the things that are being going on at Faslane that are kind of turned into fiction in Alex's book. And but we do lots of other things. I'm just I'm one of a team of about 10 that produce it, 10 or more sometimes. To just a couple of examples, we ran a story today by one of my colleagues, which is about how greyhounds, when they're racing, have been found to have been given cocaine, which can kill them in some circumstances, so that's not very good. We did another story at the weekend by another colleague of mine, revealing who actually is profiting from building the sick kids hospital, which, as you know, if you're in Edinburgh, has been a mess and it's been long delayed. And you can read all those on the ferret.scot, but we only give you 3 free stories a month because we've all got to earn a living, and then we'll ask you to subscribe. So I urge you to check it out. Right, that's the plug over. What I want to do this evening is just focus. It's very different from what Alex has just done. I want to focus on 2 live nuclear issues that I think are important. One is, which I've written about, one is the reintroduction of secrecy by the Ministry of Defence, in a way I'll explain, and the other is the Hunterston nuclear reactors, which are cracked. Obviously, there's lots of other issues I want to talk about, and I'm happy to talk about anything else or discuss any other issues. So first, what I want to do is talk about the MOD's secrecy. I've called it in the past a secret citadel, and unfortunately, it's reverting to type. First, a little bit of background. So protecting the public from nuclear weapons accidents is a responsibility of an internal MOD agency called the Defence Nuclear Safety Regulator, which you may or may not have heard of, the DNSR. It's the DNSR that oversees the safety during the refurbishment, transportation, storage of Trident nuclear warheads, Aldermaston and Burfield in England, Faslane and Coulport near Glasgow. The DNSR also regulates the safety of the regular nuclear shipments that are made up and down our roads, and the nuclear reactor-driven submarines, some of which carry Trident, as well as conventional missiles, and are based at Faslane. But the Defence Nuclear Safety Regulator is not like any other public regulatory agencies, such as the Office for Nuclear Regulation, which regulates nuclear power stations, civil nuclear power stations, or the Scottish Environment Protection Agency, which regulates the environment in Scotland, including nuclear emissions from civil power stations, or the Health and Safety Executive, which is a UK organisation, regulates health and safety at work. They are all independent of the people they recognise, to a very large, very significant extent anyway. But the DNSR, the Defence Nuclear Safety Regulator, is entirely within the MOD. It's entirely a creature of the MOD. It's not an independent organisation at all. So, in essence, it's military chaps, and they are mostly chaps, reassuring other military chaps that everything's fine. There's no independence, no public accountability, and in my view, no real safety regulation. However, I've spent a lot of time focusing on what DNSR safety regulation means. For years, it was carried out in almost complete secrecy. We didn't even know the name of the Chief Nuclear Defence Safety Regulator, or what he wrote or said or thought. So after a prolonged freedom of information battle, from 2005, the Ministry of Defence reluctantly started publishing DNSR annual reports. They were released, all of them, over 10 years until 2014-15. And I've read them all. Lots of stories. I've written lots of stories about them, so have others. And they highlighted, summarising, regulatory risks of the nuclear weapons complex 86 times, 13 of which were rated as high priority, 15 as medium priority, and 23 as low priority. To give you some examples, one of the issues often raised by DNSR as a high risk with nuclear weapons was a growing shortage of what they called suitably qualified and experienced nuclear engineers. The report for 2014-15, for example, warned that the lack of skilled staff was the principal threat to the delivery of nuclear safety, i.e. they don't have enough trained engineers. It also cautioned, the report for 2014-15, that attention is required to ensure maintenance of adequate safety performance for aging submarines. Similar concerns were highlighted in previous DNSR reports for previous years. There's a whole catalogue of them. Other things they flagged up. The 2007 report flagged up 11 potentially significant risks, which he didn't specify, at military nuclear sites. The 2006 report warned that crew fatigue could cause hazards during the transport of nuclear warheads by road. Those are just a few examples. And remember, this is the MOD regulating itself. The release of these reports gave us at least some idea of how the MOD was ensuring the safety of its nuclear bombs and the issues that concerned its internal regulator. And I would argue they gave the clearest understanding to date of the dangers associated with the nuclear weapons complex. But then it all changed. The Ferret reported in 2017 that the MOD had abruptly decided to stop publishing the annual DNSR reports. The reason they gave, the only reason they've given, is to protect national security. That's all they said. It wasn't clear what had changed to justify keeping the entire contents of reports that had been released for 10 years totally secret again. Worse, in July 2018, we wrote another story pointing out that when the then Defence Minister, someone called Guto Beb, was asked in the House of Commons to say what the overall summary category of safety assurance had been given by the DNSR to the nuclear weapons complex, he refused. So it's not just that they've refused the annual reports, which are kind of 50, 80-page documents. They've refused to say whether the, what level of safety assurance they gave to the whole nuclear weapons complex. Were the UK's nuclear weapons in a safe condition, in a slightly risky condition, or a very risky condition? The Minister wouldn't say. So you don't even know what the summary headline of these reports are, and let alone what the details of them. The Defence Minister Beb confirmed that the DNSR reports did contain a level of safety assurance, but wouldn't say what it was, and said they will not be published as has been assessed to do so would impact national security. He added, in the current security climate, we cannot accept compromising our capabilities by disclosing the reports or details contained within. Now, that secrecy has been widely criticised by experts, politicians, campaigners, many pointing out that it begs the question, what are they hiding? What is happening with nuclear weapons that has to be kept under wraps? What is the problem? What is the thing that means it's now a matter of national security, which it hasn't been for the last 10 years? That's frankly baffling and frustrating. The
there's some hope of changing it. I've been working with the nuclear researcher Peter Burt, who some of you may know, who's based in England, who's now coordinating another prolonged battle under freedom of information law to try and end the secrecy, i.e. you have to ask the MOD to release a report under freedom of information law, then they refuse, you have to ask them to review it, then they still refuse, then you have to ask the Information Commissioner to review it, and they say, oh no, it's national security. Then you have to go to the top tier of appeal in the UK, which is an information tribunal, which is, I think, where we're heading. And it'll take a while to be resolved, and it's very difficult to predict the outcome. But in the meantime, for the last 4 or 5 years, reports that were published for 10 years on nuclear weapons safety are kept under wraps, and we don't know what they say. I think that's a problem, in my view. So that's the first thing I want to talk about. I don't know how interesting that was, but it fascinates me. And doubtless I'll write about it again. But also, I want to talk about Hunterston B, and some of you I know about this. But to remind those that maybe don't, Hunterston is on the North Ayrshire coast, to the west of Glasgow. It's the site of 2 nuclear power stations. One, Hunterston A, has been closed down for some years and has been decommissioned. The other, Hunterston B, consists of 2 aging, cracked reactors, and a lot of people are campaigning for them to be permanently shut down. The 2 reactors at Hunterston B, that's called Reactor 3 and Reactor 4, started generating electricity in 1976. They're originally due to be closed in 2006, but the French state company that runs them, EDF, wants to keep them both going until at least 2023. That's its current target. But the company has run into unexpectedly severe problems with the cracking of the graphite bricks that make up the reactor core and whose integrity is vital for the safe running of the reactors. So there are about 3,000 or so graphite bricks. They're pretty big things in each reactor core. And in the course of the reactor's life, they're bombarded by intense radiation because it's very, very radioactive in the core of the reactor. So they've been bombarded by radiation for 4 decades. This stresses them, makes them more vulnerable, more brittle, more vulnerable to cracking. This is a problem because the bricks provide the channels for which reactors are cooled and safely shut down. So if too many graphite bricks break and become misaligned, it could inhibit cooling, which is done by gas, or prevent control rods from being inserted and shutting down a nuclear reaction. In the worst circumstances, some experts have warned it could lead to a major nuclear accident similar to Chernobyl, releasing clouds of dangerous radioactivity over Glasgow and Edinburgh if the wind was blowing east. So it's pretty important to avoid that. So where are we? Reactor number 3 at Hunterston is the oldest of EDF's fleet of advanced gas-cooled reactors in the UK. So you'd expect it to be the most cracked. It's run slightly longer than Reactor 4 at Hunterston. Reactor 3 was closed on the 9th of March 2018, and despite repeated target dates to reopen it being missed, it now looks likely to stay shut for at least the rest of 2019. EDF's current target restart date for Reactor 3 is the 15th of January 2020. But every previous date they've given has been postponed. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's postponed too. Reactor 3, EDF has inspected via cameras a quarter of its core. And based on that inspection, it estimates that there are 377 cracks in the graphite around the reactor core. Now, the operational limit that was set by the Office for Nuclear Regulation, the independent nuclear regulator that, unlike the DNSR, that regulates the civil nuclear industry, their operational safety limit for the number of cracks was 350. So Reactor 3 exceeded that by having 377. So that's a problem. EDF, however, the company has been strongly urging the regulator, ONR, to relax the operational safety limit to allow more than 350 cracks. The ONR succumbed to this argument in August, saying that the number of acceptable cracks, according to their estimate, was being doubled from 350 to 700, which EDF are very pleased about. Whether or not, however, reactor 3 is going to be restarted remains unknown, because there's still a big behind-the-scenes argument going on between EDF and ONR about when, whether, and in what circumstances, and for how long Hunterston Reactor 3 will be allowed to restart. I wouldn't hold your breath for the outcome, but the outcome is at this stage, to me anyway, unknown. That's all about Reactor 3, the oldest one. So also in August, the ONR gave EDF permission to restart the other reactor, Hunterston Reactor 4, but only for 4 months, to see how its cracks proliferate. Based on an inspection of just 10% of the core, EDF estimates there are 209 cracks in Reactor 4, so it's significantly less than in Reactor 3, but still quite a lot. Reactor 4 was shut down on the 2nd of October 2018. It reopened again in August and should be shut down again in December if they stick to their 4 months. ONR, the regulator, stressed that after 4 months EDF would have to again prove that it was safe to carry on running the reactor. And in their words, the longer term condition of the reactor remains uncertain. So that, as I understand it, is currently where we are with Hunterston. I just want to make one other point in conclusion. So, and this is obvious if you think about it, the heart of the argument between the regulator ONR and the French company EDF is money. It's not just that the company, the longer the company can keep the 2 Hunterston reactors running, the longer it can keep making money out of them, keep profiting from them. It's also that what EDF is allowed to do at Hunterston will set a precedent for the 5 other similar nuclear power stations across the country, including Torness in East Lothian and power stations across and around England. So EDF, which is hard pressed with problems in France, financial problems, because of difficulties having its nuclear power stations there, and also with its delayed and increasingly expensive plans for a new nuclear station at Hinkley Point in Somerset, it's vital for their financial interest to keep the Hunterston reactors running for as long as it can, to prolong the income they get from selling electricity, and because whatever happens at Hunterston, however long they're allowed to run them, however many cracks they're allowed, is likely to apply to all the other 5 reactors across the UK, 5 nuclear power stations across the UK. On the other side, EDF wants to make money. The Office for Nuclear Regulation, a UK government agency, has the job of protecting public safety. So I have no doubt that it and its public and its political masters respond to public opinion on that. So it's important that the public convey its opinion on that matter. That's all I want to say. Happy to answer questions, discuss whatever you want.